I believe continues to exemplify what this means in today's society. All right. So our speaker today is Dr. Daniela Gladden Green. She's the current executive director of the Women's Business Center in Richmond, Virginia, my hometown. She's the first African-American woman to earn a doctorate degree at North Carolina State University in materials science and engineering. And though she started her career journey as an engineer, she has gone on to hold various director roles and serves on the boards of multiple professional and civic organizations. And since the inception of her career, she has been advocating for inclusion and diversity on a global cultural scale. Through her work as a lifelong member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, so they say, she's a mentor, guiding and inspiring the next generations of professionals. And it's with that I kick off and pivot to Dr. Danni Green. Are you there? Are you on the call today? I can't see you.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
There you are.
Thank you. Thank each of you, and happy early Juneteenth. Let me begin by thanking, Tanisha and Roshan. I guess Land O'Lakes in general. I want to thank you for this opportunity and such a kind introduction. So my goal over the next few, and you can take my bio down if you want so we can all see each other. My goal over the next few minutes really is to share a unique perspective that leaves us all better and well-informed than we were before. The focus of this talk lines up with the foundation that Tanisha laid, and that is lessons in excellence that we can extract from our Juneteenth experience. And as much as I would like to speak to Juneteenth from 1866, when they held the first celebration, to the present day, doing so without painting a picture of the pre-Emancipation Proclamation might compromise your ability to feel me through the healing that has been taking place for the enslaved. And so this is not the commercialized version of Juneteenth, but it's more an effort to elevate the conversation so that we can walk away more enlightened than we were before. Now, I don't normally apologize in an exchange, but what I will say is that sometimes I can get a little bit cerebral, and I will seek to help you right now. So if you want to capture, this idea of what are your key takeaways, if you're the kind of person who likes to have dessert before dinner, I'm getting ready to give it to you right now, and fast forward to the key takeaway from our time together today. And that is, if you hear nothing else that I say after this point, I would hope that you would let this penetrate your spirit. And here it is, the most essential lesson emerging from the memorialization of the Emancipation Proclamation, which was our impetus for our Juneteenth celebration, is this: freedom fuels excellence, Black excellence, in communities, companies, and countries. This excellence is reflected as creativity and innovation, engagement and impact, public service and civic commitment. Freedom truly is power, and not unlike the energy described by Einstein, which cannot be created nor destroyed, but only can be transformed. This is my declarative statement and call to action. Freedom to be seen and heard, freedom to be respected and appreciated, freedom to be rewarded and celebrated. Freedom fuels excellence. So that's it, y'all. If you want to tune off and take no more, walk away with that. But I dare say, if you continue to listen, there will be some other things that might be beneficial in your quest to learn and elevate the conversation around why Juneteenth is important and what excellence emerged with that celebration. So you recall that when I started out, I mentioned our Juneteenth. So let me be a little bit more granular with that. I say our because whether you're African American, white, Asian, Hispanic, or some other American ethnicity. We are all products of American history. This history includes the reality that around 1609, white European colonizers immigrated to these Americas to find a new cash crop. By 1619, they decided that the solution to accelerate economic growth, regardless of the crop, whether tobacco or cotton, was chattel slavery. The slave trade offered a lever to control labor expenses as a component of the cost of goods sold. And in fact, it is this American slave trade that framed our country's economic dominance for more than 200 years. Over these 200 plus years, many lives were lost, many dreams were deferred, and excellence was seemingly extinguished. Yet, not without a fight. The freedom-seeking rebellion led by Nathaniel Bacon in 1676 began to manifest in the 1863 signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. Let's be clear, this presidential proclamation was reluctantly signed, and yet it was progress. Too much to unpack right now, but the reality is we'll take it however we can get it. Thereafter, many watch night services were never the same, and the long road to a promise of freedom, empowered excellence began to gain momentum. But wait. The enslaved men, women, boys, and girls in Texas knew nothing of their status change from being enslaved to embracing freedom. This was the case 2 years after emancipation. And then in 1865, General Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, to declare the end of slavery on paper. Again, too much to unpack, but it's that we put a pin in that. And although we not often emphasize this, how chattel slavery, we talk about how it dehumanized and brutalized African Americans. But believe it or not, it also incarcerated the souls of the slave master. So Juneteenth really isn't just for us as African Americans. Juneteenth peeled back and unplugged a situation that hung like a millstone around the neck of these Americas. And so in 2021, when the Biden administration made Juneteenth a federal holiday, it communicated to the world that on June 19th, 1865, all Americans began the journey towards healing from centuries of enslavement and those who appointed themselves as slave masters. I know it's a little heavy, but I'm hoping that you got my back. As such, the momentum of and contributions by newly freed Americans in pursuit of community and excellence found oxygen and began to expand exponentially. This was despite of the oppression in the form of judicial shackles and legislative chains, better known as Reconstruction and Jim Crow. So today, we look back over our history and choose to focus on how we got over, knowing that a change was going to come, which gave us just enough fuel to hold out until that time. So consider this. Even as enslaved people, we dreamt big. In times of challenges and opportunities, we acted decisively because we believed we could. And that's still the case today. In these Americas, as we move forward knowing that the social justice and the woes of today are overcomable, can be overcome, because Juneteenth commemorates the fact that we have a resiliency that is like no other. So we call on this resilient spirit of our ancestors as we consider slavery to emancipation and Juneteenth right in the context of we can do what it takes to make what happens and put us in a position for going forward. We call on the resiliency of our ancestors to contextualize the past while capitalizing on the differences that freedom actually makes. When we get free, we say, when we get educated, we say, when we become owners. As a people, our physical being may have once been restricted, yet once our minds broke free, all possibilities were there. And so isn't it time for us to act more boldly and more often? In the novel Beloved by Toni Morrison, she wrote, freeing yourself is one thing, but claiming ownership of that freed self is another. They really are two different sides of a coin, but the difference is not it's not something we can't overcome. Freedom alone isn't sufficient. It's the actions that follow that are key and so important to our ability to be able to wrap our heads around what the possibilities are through Black excellence. Just like Tanisha mentioned when she said, why put Black in front of it? Guess what? It is a benefit to our country and to the world. We are receiving it because that's the strength that it takes to overcome so much time. Just remember, it was only in the 60s that we started to really experience civil rights. You know, it's not that long ago. Slavery and oppression restricted our movement and growth. Prejudice and discrimination can hold us back professionally and economically. And yet, Juneteenth became a beacon of hope regarding future possibilities. In the short term, freedom catapulted us into excellence. Remember, I said, just like the Einstein saying, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It just transformed. So excellence in our people has been there all along. The Emancipation Proclamation and subsequent movements in our legislature only allowed it to take a transformative path such that it can be better utilized to fuel our future. Black excellence truly is bigger than any one of us. It embodies all of us. Juneteenth, as a celebratory federal holiday, reminds us that none of us is free if one of us remains bound. We continue to pursue freedom and equality while we celebrate how far we have come and how far we have to go. We must remember from whence we came, yet we also must avoid parallel realities that threaten our mindset by restricting creativity and innovation. Oh yes, we can name those things that threaten us. Lack of confidence, arrogance, superficial assimilation, fear of success, fear of failure, rejection, complacency, and envy. All of those things, whether we are business owners or in corporate America, could detract from the mindset of moving forward. But to transform these threats into opportunities, we must be vigilant, purposeful, and deliberate in an effort to become the living manifestation of a dream once deferred. James Baldwin penned this truth in 1962. He said, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed unless it is faced. So we are facing some truths today, and we can change the trajectory, not only of our cities, not only of the communities and the country that we're in, but also the companies that we operate in. To do so, we must leave bitterness behind and become better. After all, we are living the dreams of our forefathers. Admittedly, this is challenging, as many of our ancestors died before there was any tangible hope of their dreams of freedom coming into reality. You know, death at sea through the Middle Passage. Others died in the pursuit of freedom, such as during the Bacon Rebellion. And still others died without reaching the knowledge of knowing they were free. We're talking about 1863 to 1865 in Texas. And yet freedom was and is the catalyst to unveiling our excellence, because thereafter we sought to dream big, brilliantly, because just beyond our reach was the horizon that we were seeking. We started to act decisively, writing our visions, making it plain, which were prerequisites for relentlessly pursuing our destiny. We believed in ourselves and our cause and our people and our community because our purpose was our passion. You know, I oftentimes think about what does it take to move from good to great? The reality is, in doing so, we have to think about just a few scenarios. Good people dream of living a good life. Great people dream of facilitating a great life for others. Good people dream of earning a lot of money. Great people dream of improving the economic well-being of communities with limited resources. That's where the corporate social responsibility comes in. That's where a company like Land O'Lakes, who's made a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, matters. That's where I may not understand your struggle, but I understand that it is important for those that we employ to bring all of themselves into the workplace and do what it takes to make the bottom line greater. And we all benefit in that, right? So I ask the question, do we aspire to be good or do we aspire to be great? So, you know, I was recently at a conference and I was asked about if I was a if then person or an even if person. You do know that if not people are average and oftentimes lack the motivation to impact their destiny. They often can be heard saying, if not for this, if not for that. By contrast, the even if person succeeds in spite of this or that. We have the mindset that even if this happens, I am going to achieve my goal. Even if people really are thermostats, we're not thermometers. We are rare air, aspiring towards Black excellence. Here, AIR stands for authority, impact, and reward, whether in our cities, our companies, or our country. So in closing, I urge you to remember that freedom fuels excellence. Its prosperity is the product of preparation and perseverance. And to bring this into a closer reality, I want to share an excerpt from one of my published poems that's entitled, Freedom, Got Some? It chronicles a conversation with one of our older souls and one of our newer soldiers. Freedom, got some? Yeah, yeah. I hear y'all talking about freedom. They say we's got the right to vote and all, that Blacks can go to school with whites. Well, I don't see what's so good about this so-called freedom. You mean you can't change the heart of a man just because he sits next to a Negro? You tell a story that sounds good, might even look good, like pigs with lipstick on them. Hell, Sunday is still the most segregated day of the week. If things are so different with all this freedom, somebody needs to tell God. Fast forward 40 years and still the integration and assimilation movement is stagnant. We still the odd man out of the classroom, the boardroom, hell, even in the movies. Oh, I see the broken and token activity that's going on to keep up appearances. I know that things are not the same, but are they really that different? So we got a Black man that was in the White House. He's still hated for being Black. And not that he's done anything wrong or worse than anyone else. He's just Black, but ain't half that. And he's hated, like Malcolm and Martin. Hated for being intelligent, beating them at their own games with their own rules and tools. Now look here, man. Life really is what you make it. Freedom is in your heart and your soul. Liberty comes from the Lord. What you do with it is your offering and praise and worship to Him. I'm not trying to say that your emotion has no basis, and yet you need to step up. You need to try to garner the energy that comes with freedom. You need to take advantage of the seed that was planted in you and do something with your freedom. It's a waste of time to reflect on these old things and focus on what isn't as opposed to what is. It really comes down to, what are you doing with your freedom? What difference have you made? What life have you saved, if only your own? Bitterness, regret, and anger must pass and give way to love, forgiveness, and joy. Only you can choose for you. What will you do? What will you do with your freedom now? Thank you.